Hey guys, and what is up? So today's video is going to be just like a sit down and talk kind of video. I'm going to try to do my best and like actually look at the camera. I feel like every single time I come on and like I'm chatting, I look everywhere except for the camera. I just feel like sometimes I have, not that I have a hard time looking at the camera, it's just that like the way I think I look away from the camera, if that makes any sense. But I wanted to come on here and just, sorry, I'm just reaching out for my water in case I get thirsty. But I wanted to come on here and talk. I wanted to share a story of my diagnosis with you all. I've shared already in the past, and I've shared it many times on my in my plan with me's, like on my videos, that I do have rheumatoid arthritis, and I also do have like some mental health issues. But I wanted to share how my journey to being diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis was, because I feel like it's a very interesting, crazy, not super common. Maybe it is pretty common. I'm not too sure. I haven't heard a lot of like other people have this type of experience. So I wanted to share my experience. So yeah, I just thought it would be like an interesting thing to share. And I'm not at all like ashamed or embarrassed or feel like I shouldn't, because it's a common diagnosis nowadays. And if this could help someone, or if somebody watching this can be encouraged to know that, you know, it's okay and that there's a brighter tomorrow with like a chronic illness, then, you know, so be it. My goal is to always try to help and inspire and encourage anyone. So yeah, I hope if you are interested in this conversation or this chat, I hope you stick around, and yeah, let's go ahead and get right into it. Hold on, I need a sip. Okay, so it all started when I was in high school. I was a freshman in high school, sophomore in high school, I'm sorry. And when it was from the summer, let me backtrack. It was from the summer of, shouldn't put that there. It was from the summer of freshman year going to sophomore year that I started experiencing some problems. And in that summer, I was working as a lifeguard at a pool, and I wasn't really doing like a whole ton of swimming, but I was still doing some swimming because I had to, as well as like being out in the sun, like pretty much all day, every single day. And I started that job. It was even before the summer started. It was like around June. And then I was doing it all summer, and then around late August, right before school was about to start, because we, here in Texas, at least when I was going to school, we started school at the end of August, like August the 25th, the 29th, like that's kind of how it was. And around I would say like the beginning, kind of mid-August, I started feeling pain on my feet. And it felt whenever I stepped on the ground, even with tennis shoes on or sandals or whatever it was, it could be on pavement, it could be on carpet, whatever surface, I felt like the balls of my feet and like the center of my foot, like the arch, whenever I put pressure on it, it would just burn. That's the best way that I can describe it. Like imagine if you were to be walking out in like concrete, like hot, like concrete during like dead of summer, and then your feet burn. Imagine that pain. That's what I felt. And that's the best way that I can describe it. It was pretty painful. It hurt a lot. And I remember I told my mom, and I should say, before I even start talking about my parents and how they responded the best way that they could, and I love them. I am so thankful for them, for their tenacity, for wanting to find what was wrong with me. But yeah, let me go ahead and continue. I told my mom what was happening, and she said it's because you're spending so much time at the pool. That pool has a lot of chemicals in it. You're out in the sun. That makes sense. You need to give yourself some rest, which valid. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like that was her thought, what she thought might have been wrong. So I just agreed with her. I was like, yeah, you know what, you're right. So I made sure that I was wearing like shoes out in the pool, that I wasn't walking around barefoot. um you know, I made little changes and adjustments, but it was so bad to the point that I started having to take ibuprofen, like painkillers. And I was doing this behind my parents' back, behind my mom's back especially, because I was afraid of them knowing. Um, I was afraid of them knowing that I was taking pain for something that they kind of made it seem like it wasn't as painful as I felt it, if that makes any sense. So I started taking painkillers behind their back, and this was just normal, like ibuprofen that you would get at like your local grocery store or whatever. But that started happening, and it progressively got worse to the point that in the mornings when I would wake up to get ready and shower and, you know, start my day, I would be hurting from the moment I woke up to, you know, the moment I ended my day. And it was painful. It was terrible. I hated it. And school started, and I remember like I used to live across the street from school, so for me to go to school, I had to walk to school. My mom used to leave to go to work at like 5 a.m. My dad would leave around the same time, and so I basically would wake myself up, get myself ready, walk myself to school, and walk myself back. And, you know, I was kind of like taking care of myself basically. And I would wake up in pain, and at that age, I remember how I used to take showers at night because I would wake up, sorry, my elbows just popped. I would wake up and my hair would be dry, so I would be able to style it or whatever it is that I wanted to do to it. I was in high school, so, you know, little things like that mattered. But I figured out that showering in the morning with hot water helped a little bit. So I started taking showers in the mornings, and I tried it would help, but after a certain time, the pain would start getting worse. Like the pain would get a little bit better, and then it would get worse throughout the day. And it got to the point that I couldn't stand it anymore. Like simply walking to school was just so painful that I started skipping school. My dad would tell me it's because you're wearing those shoes. At that time, it was fashion. What was in for girls to wear were like flats, you know, like no support, nothing, or sandals, especially in Texas. So I would wear my flats, I would wear my sandals, and that what was most comfortable to me. Especially like tennis shoes were comfortable, but my feet also were swelling, so that was painful also. So it was like, you know, I couldn't win regardless. And explaining that to my parents just seemed like I was like being a complainer or not being a teenager basically. And so I started skipping school because I didn't want to walk to school. It was less than a mile away, less than honestly even half a mile away, because it was literally across the street. But I started skipping school. There was times where my mom would be off because she had off during the weekdays instead of the weekends, that I would pretend like I was going to school. It was just that bad, and I would just hang out. Sometimes, majority of the time I would make it and I would try to get through it, but sometimes like I would get to half the day and I can't do it anymore, and I would just walk home. Yeah, that's what would happen. And finally, like, I went from August, when I started feeling pain, starting school, I went like a few months, and I would tell my mom, like, it hurts, it hurts, it hurts. My mom took me to the doctor's one time. It was like, she's experiencing this kind of pain, whatever. So they did some x-rays, some blood work, you know, the whole spiel that a doctor would do when a kid or a teenager tells them this is what's going on, especially like the symptoms that I was describing, and nothing was found. So my parents, and even not the doctor, I think my parents on their own started thinking that I was lying, that I was making it up. I have a brother that's like a troublemaker. He's always been in and out of trouble, so they just assumed that maybe it was like my way of trying to get away with certain things, given like the history that has happened in our family with my brother, which valid, you know what I mean? Like, it's what it is. I guess it makes sense to some people. And some people do that, and I don't blame them. It's hard, you know? But I continued on with pain, not knowing what was going on, people thinking I was lying, my parents thinking that I was lying. I'm gonna get emotional because I've told this story before, and it hurts. But my parents thought I was lying, and it wasn't until Thanksgiving Day that we went to my aunt's house, and our entire family was there, and everybody was like eating and hanging out and talking, and you know, the whole family was just out in the living room and the kitchen, and you know, like just telling jokes and being with each other. And I've always been a bigger girl. I've always been a curvy girl. And I've always been a person that ate a lot, you know? Maybe not like a lot, but I always had a good appetite, you know? And especially during Thanksgiving, like, who doesn't? And so I didn't eat. I had like a bite to kind of make it seem like, sorry, the TV turned, I accidentally pressed play. Like, I did eat, and I had a bite or two, and I just got up and I went to my aunt's room, and I just laid down and I sat in her bed, and I sat kind of like how I am here, like on one side, and little by little just started laying down, and I just laid down and I was on my side and I was crying because I was in so much pain. I'm so sorry, guys. It's just such like an emotional story. And it hurts to think that there's people suffering with even more excruciating pain than what I've experienced. Hold on. Okay, I try to clear my eyes a little bit, but yeah, I went to my aunt's room. I lay down. I ended up just like literally laying there, I didn't even fall asleep. I was just crying. And my aunt came in. I think she was coming in just to like grab a sweater or something. And she like saw me that I was crying because I couldn't like, it was kind of like I was tearing. I wasn't like crying like a lot. It was just like tearing up because I was in pain. And she asked me like what was wrong. And I'm so thankful that she did that, because God knows why he does things, you know? Because here I go again. She asked me what was wrong, and I told her like it hurts. My body, like at that point, it wasn't just my feet. It was literally like my hands, my back, my knees, like everything was hurting. My jaw was locking up. Everything was just so painful. hold on. Sorry, you guys. My husband texted me. He's on his way back from Vegas. But anyways, I told my aunt what was going on and how I felt and the pain that I was feeling, and she asked, "Have you told your parents?" And I said, "Yeah, I have, but the doctors can't find anything, so they don't believe me." And so I've never been really close to this aunt either. Like, she's my aunt, like, and I love her. When I was little, I was really attached to her, but at that age, I wasn't really close to her. And she went out to the living room and she got my mom, and she told her, like, she's not okay. She's crying. She's away from everyone, and on Thanksgiving, she's away from her, like, her favorite cousin who I've always spent time with. I was alone in the dark. And she told her, like, she's not okay. She's in pain. You need to take her to the doctor. Something's wrong with her. And I'm so thankful for that. Because I don't know what my life would have been had she not brought that up to my mom and told her, like, you need to believe her. Clearly she's complaining because it hurts. I'm sorry, I'm gonna turn off the fan because it's making a weird sound. It was on high and it was making a funky sound. But my mom she finally was like, okay, like, I'm sorry, I didn't know it was this bad. And I also blame myself. Like, I've been talking to my therapist, and she's made me feel better of kind of making people responsible for the way that they've responded to certain things. So I'm not saying I'm putting blame to my parents for not believing me, but I think it's now I feel okay with saying that they should have responded differently. I don't even know where I was going with that little part of what I was saying, but I'm really glad that my aunt noticed me and that she saw that. I also put blame to myself for not being more vocal and for trying to be as strong as I was being. Because had I told my mom, like, hey, I don't feel well, as opposed to, like, just being, like, off to the side and not, like, actually expressing how painful it was. Because I've given the history that my brother has put us through, I kind of learned to be as good as I could be, to not be a burden, because he was already such a burden to my parents. So I thought the right thing for me to do was, in that situation, was that if my parents were telling me I was okay, I must be okay. And I wouldn't complain about it as much. Like, I would say it hurts, but once, they didn't believe me, it was like, okay, well, yeah, maybe it is me, maybe it's just, like, me making stuff up. Like, I don't know, maybe something is wrong with me mentally. I mean, at that time, like, thinking something was wrong mentally was unheard of, but I just thought it was what it was. But that after that night, my mom, it was Friday, couldn't do anything about it, like, all weekend, and my mom called my doctor and he started seeing me. They sent me to so many specialists, so many doctors. I was in and out of hospitals. Like, my doctor, I am so grateful for him because he never gave up. He just kept on going. He had no idea that I was still not doing well. He had thought that maybe I was okay, or that I had just gone away, or that it was, like, growing pains or something. And he just never gave up. He's like, okay, let's send her here, let's send her there. okay, let's do this test, let's do that test, let's take her to the hospital, let's put her in, everything. And I was in and out of hospitals. I was um in and out of hospitals, seeing so many doctors, so many specialists, so many tests. Everything was done, and we didn't find out, as it is, we didn't even find out what was wrong with me. I saw an orthopedist because it was mainly my feet, and he just said it's probably growing pains given her age. And they took x-rays, whatever. And every single time I had an appointment with a specialist, my family doctor, my primary doctor, would ask to see me the next day or whatever, just to literally call the office and say, it's Anabel, I need to see the doctor, and to follow up, he knows what's wrong. And they would take me in, like, he would take me in between patients, and he would take me off the side door and like see me in his own like office and ask what happened. And he just was such a great doctor. I'm sure he was also intrigued and wanting to know what was going on. And after the last specialist that I saw, he's like, I don't know if this is it. I don't think it is, but based on everything that I'm seeing and everything that she's telling me and the way she's describing her pain, I think it's rheumatoid arthritis. At that time, this was like back in like 2007. At that time, that was so uncommon that like a girl my age at 16 would have an illness like that. Nowadays, it's a lot more common. It's not as unheard of, I should say, but not at that time. You never heard it. You never saw it. It was always older women or, mid 30s or whatever, but not 16. And my doctor said, I think it's rheumatoid arthritis. And he asked my mom, this is the treatment that they start people with rheumatoid arthritis. Do you want me to prescribe it to her? He's like, I don't know why it's not coming up in her blood, if it is or if it isn't, but we can try it and we can see if it works. And my parents had grown so frustrated and also afraid of what could have been wrong. They even at one point thought that maybe I had like some sort of cancer or that I had like bone cancer, because I would literally like wake up and look around and go back to sleep. I lost so much weight, you guys. Like, I was about this size when I was in high school. Honestly, I've always been a big girl, and I lost about 100 pounds while I was in high school because I was so sick. I wouldn't eat. I was afraid of eating because I didn't want to go to the restroom. It was painful to like have to get up, sit, and get up from the toilet. It was excruciating. And my doctor at that time, he said, I want to prescribe her this medication, and these are the side effects, and this is what I'm recommending, and we can try it for maybe 2 weeks and see what happens. And if not, then we can go ahead and move forward on to other things that may be wrong. And he prescribed me methotrexate and prednisone. And I think now the family doctor wouldn't even prescribe methotrexate, but at that time he did. That's what he prescribed me. He said, I think it was like a really, really high dose of prednisone. It had to be like, if I'm not mistaken, that was painful. That like hurt. It had to be like 30 milligrams of prednisone, which is a pretty high amount. And he also gave me methotrexate. And I remember we left the doctor's office. Had to be like 9 o'clock, because I think I was the first one that was seen. And we put in the order and we waited there for it. And as soon as I got home, I took the medication and I went to bed. That's usually what I did. I'm pretty sure I hit some sort of like depressive stage given the situation. And I fell asleep and I woke up, had to be like maybe like 7, like 6:37. And you guys, I got out from I was sleeping in my parents' bed because it was just more comfortable to me than my own bed at that time. Their bed was fluffier. I was sleeping on my parents' bed and I came out of their room and my parents were sitting on the dining room table and they were having dinner, and I just got out and I was like in shock. I was walking and it wasn't painful. And all I could do, like, I was walking out, like, little by little, kind of expecting, like, okay, it's gonna hit at one point. Like, maybe I'm just not feeling it yet. Maybe something's wrong. Why aren't I feeling the pain? And I walked out. There's, like, a hallway, and, where it was, like, my parents' room, a little hallway, laundry room. You go in further, and then there was the kitchen and dining room. And, I walked out of the little hallway and I saw my parents and I was in such shock. I just like looked up at them. They were eating and I wasn't feeling any pain and I just started crying, like bawling. And my mom like got up, she like rushed to me and I fell to the floor. And I'm sure she was like so afraid of like what was going on because I couldn't even talk. I couldn't even talk because I was just so in shock of like not feeling pain. I had felt pain for months. This was like in February when this finally happened. So I went from August all the way to February in pain without a diagnosis. And I fell to the ground and I was just like amazed that I wasn't feeling any pain. And finally I was able to like articulate and say like, I'm okay. I don't feel any pain. I'm okay. And my mom, like, she started crying and, you know, saying thank you, God, and everything. And it was such an emotional day, like night. I was just in shock and I wanted to like run. I wanted to like walk around everywhere because it had been so long since I had felt like no pain. And then I'm so sorry, I'm like crying so much. And then the next day my mom called the doctor and told him what was going on, and he said, you know, I want to see her. And so I went in, and good God, that doctor's so amazing. He's still my doctor to this point, but he left the practice, so I have to like figure all that out. But anyways, I went in to see him and he like checked my joints, checked my hands, checked my feet, my knees, everything. And he said, you know, I always thought, he said, from the beginning when I saw you, I thought that might have been it, but I wasn't sure. And it's so uncommon for something like that to be in such a at such a young age. So he said, I wasn't sure and I just didn't think that was it. And I did the steps that needed to be taken for you to be seen by specialists that were needed. But he said, when you finally described everything in such detail, like the time after that specialist, he literally like said, hold on, give me a moment, my tripod's gonna fall. Okay. My knees hurt, sorry. Whoa. But he literally said, because I was able to finally describe everything that was going on, and he couldn't believe it, and he said, I thought, and he said, this everything that you're describing to me matches exactly what I feel. He had rheumatoid arthritis. So like, what a, not even a coincidence, because unfortunately, like, that was, that happened for a reason, like, I feel like I could have seen another doctor and he would have had no idea, because it wasn't coming up in my blood. I don't know what it was. I don't know why. Apparently it is a thing though, that is something like rheumatoid arthritis, lupus, fibromyalgia can present the symptoms but not show in your blood work, show the inflammation markers in your blood work for a certain amount of time. It can go even up to a year, and I didn't know that until later on, once I started reading up on it. And I mean, I would have never imagined. So he said I took a leap of faith because it matched everything that I feel and all of my symptoms, and I gave you the medication that I know is to be prescribed for this illness. And he said, yeah, he's like, it must be it. He said, we'll keep checking for it until it comes up, but for the meantime, let's go ahead and send you to a specialist and get you seen. So after that, he put in a referral to see a rheumatologist. And that was another struggle. So I'm thankful that my doctor was able to prescribe me the medication that did treat what was wrong with me at the early stages, because I wouldn't have known like what else could have been done. I sound so congested because I've been crying. But then the next step was trying to get seen by a rheumatologist. So it was uncommon at that time for a teenager to have rheumatoid arthritis. So there wasn't as many juvenile rheumatoid arthritis specialists. So it was so hard to find a doctor that would actually see me. It wasn't until my doctor reached out to basically one of his friends that he met through college, like during his med years or whatever. And she wasn't a rheumatologist. She was something else. I don't remember what her specialty was, but her husband was a rheumatologist, but an adult rheumatologist. But I think she was a pediatrician. And he was a rheumatologist. And so it was one of those things that it just worked out. She, I guess, had the heart to tell her husband, like, hey, she's 16. She's not, 15 or 12. Like, she's already at the age where she should be fine to be basically treated like an adult. So let's go ahead and get her seen and go from there. And yeah, I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful I got to see that doctor. He is an amazing doctor. I don't know if he still practices because after that I saw him for a few years and I had to switch because my insurance changed. But his name is Dr. Joe Cole, if I'm not mistaken. He is fantastic. He is an amazing doctor. He started prescribing me the medication, and then started, like, at that time, nowadays you don't take prednisone for as long as I did at that time, because now there's other medications. So I started off with just the regular old cocktail of methotrexate and prednisone, and I continued that. I would see so many people walking in there and asking what was wrong with me, because they would see such a young girl. And I'll try to share a picture too of how I looked back then. But there was one time a girl, I think she had been like 23 or so, that was in the waiting room, and she asked, "Do you have rheumatoid arthritis?" And I said, "Yeah, I do," because at that point that's what it was. And she said, "Oh man, I remember when I was diagnosed, I thought I would be fine." I said, Aren't you? Like, you're seeing a doctor, isn't it okay?" Like, I was so confused, and my parents didn't know to like protect me from that conversation because they're Spanish speakers, primarily Spanish speakers. They can get by with English, they can understand it, but they're not as versed, is that the right word, or as fluent with it, with the language. So they didn't know to protect me from that conversation, and she must have had a lot of hate in her heart or resentment. um I'm not sure what her past was like, but I remember her telling me I thought it was going to be fine and I should have known, but the future's not as bright. And I was like so confused. I was like, "Why do you say that?" And she said, "I went to a rheumatology, to cosmetology school, thinking that I could do it, that it would be something that was doable for me with my illness, and it's impossible. You won't be able to do anything. Your life um is gonna be depending on others." And I was like imagine telling that to a 16-year-old. And I mean, me being the girl that was raised in a faith-based home, I said, "Sorry to hear that. I'll be praying for you, and I wish you the best." And I said, "I hope you find something that you'll love and that you're called to do." And that was the end of that conversation. And I I didn't listen to her. I went to school, I did what I could. I didn't finish up everything that I needed to do or that I wanted to do because of fear for the same thing, because those words did live by me a little bit. They haunted me quite a bit. I was just so afraid of, what if a day comes where I can't do anything anymore? And here I am trying to pursue something, and I'll have people depending on me, and then I'll have to let them down because of my illness. And I have taken so much medication. I started at one point. I was in college. I had already graduated high school. I didn't get to go to prom because I was sick. So I missed out on a lot in high school, but I went to college. I had an amazing time. I enjoyed my college years. They were good. Oh, my elbow keeps popping. I had a good time. And in college is when I started taking Enbrel. So I started taking Enbrel towards the end of high school, and that's when I missed college. What the heck? Prom. And in freshman year of college, I was taking Enbrel, which is a self-injectable and like medication that you take once a week, and it was working pretty well for me. It was doing the job, and at that time, I was really involved in the church. I was a youth leader. It was this whole thing. I loved it. I enjoyed it. I think I am a person that is called to serve. I think I'm a person that I do need to be involved in the church. I'm not as much as I wish I could be. I need to find a place where I feel like I am comfortable in, but that's another story. But at that time, I remember having conversations with another youth leader, and also the church, the pastor's wife, and they told me that I so no as yeah they told me that I was in pain because of hate and resentment, which, all right, fine, whatever. And then they also told me that me taking medication and basically listening to my doctor's orders and recommendations was me having lack of faith. That hurt me so much, so much. I thought I was a bad Christian. I started at that time I stopped going to church. I went so far away from church. I still had a strong faith in my eyes because I still felt like I had a relationship with God up to my standards, the best that I could on my own, honestly. But I stopped going to church. I wasn't even interacting with these people. I'm pretty sure till this day they have no idea what their words did to me. I'm pretty sure they don't even know that they said that to me. But that happened. But I'm glad I listened to my doctors. God puts doctors in this world and gives them the knowledge and the ability to the access to have everything that we do on this earth to help people, to help the sick and the ill and the hurting. And I have to do what I have to do to live a normal life, the best that I can. I now take a medication that is called Orencia, and that is all I take for my rheumatoid arthritis. I rarely take pain medication. If I take pain medication, it's because, it's going to rain really hard or something and I just need it. But at that, I try to tough it out. I only take it if I feel inflammation. Otherwise, it's minimal. I'm really grateful that that medication exists. Come the day that stops doing the job, there's other options now. There's other infusions called Remicade. There's others out there too. So I will be the one to tell you that there are brighter days, that person that said that the days are dark, that it's not possible, that's not true. It is possible. If you're in pain, if you're experiencing something, if even it's the slightest discomfort and you think something is wrong, you reach for help, you go to a doctor, you advocate for yourself, because if you don't do it, nobody else will. And you use your voice. That's the most that I could say, because if you don't, who will? Also, don't let people tell you what you should or shouldn't do. If your doctor tells you, hey, I recommend doing this, or hey, there's this option, and you feel right to do it, then you do it. Don't ever let somebody tell you that you lack faith, because that your faith is up to you. Shouldn't even say up to you. It's your faith. So you should know where your faith stands. So if that means you think you have a strong faith, you have a strong faith. Do you know what I mean? Nobody can tell you that you lack faith because you're choosing to do something. It just makes no sense. And if anybody ever tells you something like that, I wish and I hope that you will say, no, you don't know that. But yeah, that's a bit of my story. That was a long story, so I apologize. But I know a lot of people do experience chronic pain and chronic illnesses, and I hope and I pray that you find light, that you see hope, and I will be praying for you. If you need prayer, just comment it down below or message me on Instagram if you don't want that comment to be public. And yeah, if you ever need somebody to talk to, I'm here for you. And that is all for me today. This was an emotional conversation, but it was a good one. And yeah, I'll see y'all next time. So I'm gonna end it how I usually end my videos. If you enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up. If you want to watch more of my videos, please subscribe, and I will see you all next time. Bye.